Hey everybody, David Neagle. Welcome to another episode of the Successful Mind Podcast. Today I have a very special guest, Amira Alvarez. Always wonderful to have her in the studio. She's a friend. She's a past client. It's got an amazing journey that we'll cover. And we get to hear about updates as what she's doing in her life right now. So, Amira, welcome. You want to say hi to everybody? Tell them what you do.
Hello, hello, hello. It's so good to be here. I love reconnecting. You're one of my favorite people in the world, so it's amazing to be here. I I have a long journey with you and post you, but you were incredibly pivotal in my life in terms of going from a small business and very struggling, trying to get it off the ground. Kind of stopped in my tracks, working really hard, smart, right? I'd like to throw my hair back and say that I'm smart, but I
You're
had
very
all the
smart. You're very smart.
thank you. But that wasn't enough, right? In fact, in some ways, we could have a whole conversation of how that got in my way. There were a lot of beliefs around what it took to be successful that really were keeping me trapped in a kind of like a good girl, just cross the I's, dot the T's, be a good student, work hard, and you're supposed to come out the other side successful. And I was doing all of that, and I really had to learn that success was more than just that. And you were incredibly instrumental in helping me see that. And then, I grew the business to be a multimillion-dollar business, and ended up working with other women entrepreneurs, small business owners, a lot of women in the same situation as myself, who were like the good students, the academics, and like wanting to do their own business. And how do you do that? And so I started to coach women on that, and the business, the Unstoppable Woman, just kept growing, and it was really it's been an amazing journey, and we can go into that as much as you want. And then of late, it's evolved beyond that. And although I still help women with their businesses, I'm also helping women who are asking themselves after a certain level of success, is this all there is? What else?
Yeah.
What else is there for me in my life? Um, and that was very potent for me. I'm 54. I started to ask different questions of myself and my business and my life at a certain place. And so the business has evolved to help women answer those questions and really create an exquisite life. So that's me.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I definitely want to touch on that because I think that's so very important. As you know, I went through that myself. After turning 50, it was like, oh, okay, here's this number. What does this mean? What does your life look like after that? And then you start reevaluating different. But let's start with about where you were when we met and we started working together. And from this perspective. So one of the things that I've been working with people a lot on is the idea that one of the most difficult things for us to do, that I don't think we're born with this difficulty, but it's like trained out of us, is to say, what do I really want in my life without having to justify it in any way? You have the Unstoppable Woman, which is just I love, because that says so much, right? I mean, it says a mountain of information. And of course, the way that a person relates to that internally, what does it mean for them also is big. So where were you from the perspective of what did you really want in your life when we first met?
Yeah, it's such an amazing question, and one that, I consistently ask myself every sort of evolution. But when we first met, I remember very distinctly sitting in a seminar that you had them in person at the time, and I was listening to you speak, and you said it's easier to make a lot of money than a little money, and you can make your monthly your annual income your monthly income. And I just got this incredible hook inside of me, like this it was a powerful spiritual directive. That's how I see it afterwards. But it was like, I just don't want to. Can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But I say whatever the fuck you want.
I don't don't fucking want to be poor anymore. Like, I was like, I want to make a fuck ton of money. And so when we first met, and it was hard, to your point about like claiming that and owning that. In that moment, I got it so clearly. But I remember shaking and crying when I made the decision to work with you, because it was such a profound decision to say, I want to make money, because it went against, it seems ridiculous now, but it went against how I was brought up. Like the people who made money were greedy and bad. It was frivolous. You weren't a good human. It was almost like money was something to be tolerated instead of embraced.
Right.
And um, claiming that desire was huge, and it's something that I've held for other women, because I think we have a lot. Like, I wanted the pretty clothes, I wanted like the travel, the beautiful life, but I was afraid to say I really want to make a fuck ton of money. And I remember when I signed up to work with you, I was like, I want to make $1 million. At the time, making $1 million seemed like I had arrived. Like that was the litmus test for me for success. And that was really big. It was huge when I did that. That was huge. It was
It
big.
is huge. It is huge. That it's kind of like this. We have this imprint in our mind that, again, I can't stress enough. This is programmed into us by our parents, by society, where we grow up. I usually call it the Midwest, like the Midwest curse. But you're from California, right? So I mean, it's really everywhere. Even in other countries, that money is kind of viewed as a necessary evil. You
Yeah.
know, you need it, you want to be able to do good things. We're always comparing ourselves to what the neighbors are doing or other classes of individuals, but we're not supposed to want too much. And we can't wait for somebody who has too much to like implode so that we can make them wrong, right? Like
Yeah.
across the board. Yet we have this weird contradiction where people play the lottery by the millions, hoping to win the giant jackpot. And of course, we know the statistics are horrific for lottery winners. 85% of them are completely broken, and their lives are devastated within 5 years because they don't have the psychology to be able to handle that kind of money. So when you say that that was a big deal, I just want to communicate to everybody that's listening to this. It's an extraordinary deal. It was a big deal for me. It was when I was working with my mentor. He said to me, "What do you want?" And I said, "I want to make $1 million." And that was only half true because I was really after my life's purpose at the time. I didn't know I was going to be doing what I do today. And he looked at me in the eye and he said, "But you don't believe you can do it, do you?" And I felt like this shame, like a wash of shame come over me. And I went, I've kind of put my head down and I said, no, because I was going to lie. I literally was going to lie. And I remember him saying to me, always tell me the truth and do exactly what I tell you to do. And I'll work with you. And I said, no, I don't think I can do it. He said, would you believe in my belief that you can do it? And Amira, my mind went to such a dark place when he said that because I was trying to find out what's the hook with this guy. Like, this is a con man. He's trying to con me into something. And I couldn't think of any reason why this guy would say this to me if he didn't think that that was true about me, but I couldn't see it in myself. So I said, yes, I can believe in that. And then everything began to change after that, right? I began to follow what he did.
And that was very similar, different words, similar experience to
Yeah.
the way we worked together. Because I remember I was in a in-depth coaching situation with you. It was our first time working together. And I was nervous and I had all my good student, like I want to do this right kind of stuff going on. And and you said we have to work privately together. You need to sign up for this, and you left the room. And I was like, who the frickety frick is this man who's like telling me that I have to do this? But it was the same sort of thing. It was a belief that you could see something in me that I couldn't see in myself. And I knew I had drive, and I knew I had chutzpah, right? Like
Yep.
and I had willpower and I had discipline, but I didn't know how to get beyond myself. Like I didn't know how to
And
do the
desire.
right
You had
things.
tremendous desire.
Yeah. Desire, huge. Yeah.
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 So
Absolutely.
that was it's an incredible gift to receive from someone, to have their belief palpable, in whatever form that takes, right? Whether it's words or actions, to have someone believe in you when you don't believe in yourself is just, it's phenomenal. And I would say, I want to frame this a, a little differently than I just did, because, and I think this is the case with a lot of my clients. They're super smart women. They don't have anything on the outside that makes them look like they're lacking confidence, right?
Right.
They're the uber confident, super confident and competent. They're effective. They're at the top of their game. They're the leaders in their businesses and their lives. Everyone's looking to them for direction. But underneath that, you still need someone to believe in you, right? And
Yes.
I think that that cannot be underrated. The belief that someone has in you, that you can do it, is huge, because there's going to be so many challenges. There are dark nights of the soul, and your desire, as strong as it is, I don't know if this was the case for you, David, but um, my desire was so strong, but I still wondered if I was going to make it. There were certain times in the business where I was like, am I going to make it? Right. And,
Yeah.
and to
No, it
have
was totally,
someone
yeah.
believe in you is huge. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. There were many days where the same thought would cross my mind. I knew I wasn't gonna quit. But even when you're close, when you're really close to the breakthrough, it still seems, so far ahead of you, because you don't know, you don't have anything to reference or relate it to. So let me ask you this question. What do you think, or how would you word this, when you were finally able to step into the idea that you knew you were worth it for yourself?
Hmm. How did I know? Is the question, how did I know that I
Yeah,
was
what
worth
was
it?
yeah, how did you know, or what did you go through in order to get to that place?
Yeah. Here's the thing: on a spiritual level, we're all worth it, right?
Yeah,
We're born worthy. Okay. On this physical plane, in this 3D world that we live in as humans, I needed to prove it to myself. I needed to do the work of breaking through my barriers, my terror barriers, my beliefs that said it has to be this way and not this way. I had to actually go through that gauntlet, if you will, and come out the other side and not die, and in fact be successful, to go, oh wow, I did that. I survived that. I did that. And and by that, I don't mean anything unethical. I just mean breaking through the belief structure that said, I can't have this conversation. I can't ask for this kind of money. I can't um, live my life and spend money in this way, whatever it was. There were so many things that I had to go through. Once I actually did the things, then I was like, oh, this is who I am. This is my life. I get to have this. This is actually the truth of who I am, not this other thing, that this other path that I was conditioned into believing. So, and that's not to say that, like, uh, only the financial rewards are who I am, but it's
right.
um I just remember being afraid. Like, I started, here's a good story, David. I'm a little tangent here, but
Yeah, go.
connected.
Yeah,
Um, I had already been making good money. I'd already been flying first class. I'd already been staying in the nicest hotels and renting great sports cars when I traveled. And these were things for me at the time that were symbols of having success, financial success. That might not be your thing, the person listening. It might not be the thing that floats their boat. But for me, this was like a big marker. And I was going back to LA for an event, and I was going to see my parents because both my parents live in LA. And I was terrified that I was going to pick them up in my Mercedes Benz, right, that I'd rented, and that they were going to judge me for renting a, luxury car. And sure enough, they did. They both did separately. They're divorced. They both, like, I picked up mom. She got in the car and she's like, "Oh, I always rent compacts."
Yeah.
And there was this silence. And then she was like, "But this is nice." And then, like, totally got into it. Okay. One little comment, but then totally got into it. Dad said the same thing, pretty much verbatim. Okay. They
Yeah.
were married for a long time, and they're kind of like twins, um, even though they're no longer married. And I survived that. And then it was like, we can eat at nice restaurants. You can order whatever you want, mom. I'll get it. Right. Like, it became a breakthrough rather than this thing that was holding me back. And I had to, it seems so simple looking back, but at the time it was a huge thing that I had to live through because of those belief structures that I was conditioned in the growing up in my family, that, like, you don't spend money this way. This is not who you are. You're not a good person if you do it like this. So
Right. Right. You know what's interesting about that? I mean, for as long as I've been doing this, it's something I think about all the time because I'm always working with somebody that's working through this issue. But when you say to yourself, here's these nice things that were kind of like markers for success for me, um, and these are things that you're really not supposed to want or whatever, but they were very important to me. I always find that fascinating because if you take somebody who has the polar opposite mindset, where they're trading their life for money, right? It's like, what is the cost of that versus, what you could actually really want for yourself? It's this enormous sacrifice of your life, your actual life, which you don't get back. Of course, the car is not the thing, but to have the resource to be able to live the way that you want instead of being lowered down to the level of all of your problems, and really having to deal with them from that aspect, the freedom that gives you is extraordinary. I mean, it's just absolutely extraordinary. And I love watching in somebody's face when that light bulb goes on, like, oh yeah, I can do this. I can have this. This is absolutely amazing. And then you get to share it with people that you love, Now, let's switch gears here a little bit. So you ran your business. It was incredibly successful. You were speaking all over the place, coaching women, doing fantastic. And then as you're getting a little bit older, you start reevaluating what's important to you. Tell us about that journey.
yeah, so I can't speak for all women and or all people, but
Yeah.
for me, it became I was working really hard, and uh, I would make things easy, and then I would make things hard again, right? I would just keep growing the business in a way that required my full energy reserves. Okay. I'm not saying that this was anything I didn't love in the beginning. Let me say that differently. In the beginning, I loved it. It fed me, it gave me tons of energy. It was something that I lived for. It was my identity. And then post 50, I started becoming less enamored by this need to be involved in the business at the level that I was. And I'm not afraid of hard work or work
Oh,
ethic or
that's
any
for
of that.
sure. You've got an
Right?
incredible work ethic. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. And I just was like, that this is not how I want to spend my time. And I realized that my business model didn't allow for a shift in that. I was the way I had designed the business model was a kind of always on uh, vision, and it was uh, lots of group programs and a lot of my energy, and I just decided I'm going to do it differently. I've been on a spiritual journey for years and years and years, and I believe that we get very clear directive from spirit, and this was a clear directive, and I needed to follow it instead of resisting it. Now, I will tell you that I resisted it for probably 2 years, David. So
Yeah.
I'm not as good as I say I am, right? Because it took me. My identity was really wrapped up in that business model, and what I decided to do was explore: can I run a successful business in a different way with a smaller number of clients, just a handful, like a boutique practice, a handful of
Right.
clients who really want intimate, committed, connected coaching at the highest level, and want to go explore what it's like to create an exquisite life after 50, right? When you're wondering, okay, is this all there is? Like I was wondering for myself, is this business that in the way I have designed it, is this all there is? Is this the thing that's gonna um, it wasn't the thing that was gonna keep me going for the rest of my life, and I knew
Yeah.
that now. But
Wasn't
like,
serving you anymore.
yeah, but like, what can I do differently? And I think a lot of people stay stuck because they don't want to lose the financial rewards, or they don't want to lose the identity of being that person. So they stay stuck because they're unwilling to explore what it's going to take, and that's what I'm now helping women with in particular. Like, how do you keep going towards your desire and own that new desire that you may not have been willing to own previously? I know that was the case for me. There were things that I wasn't willing to say I really wanted, and
Right.
and I had to sort of own that. Yeah.
Would you say with your experience working with the women that you're working with now, that they're taking their lifestyle, so to speak, more serious than they had prior, when they were younger in their 20s, 30s, 40s?
Yeah, I think something happens, and this might be obvious to some people, but it wasn't obvious for me, which is that women have testosterone as well. And for those of us who have that high work ethic and high drive, we go hard and we use up our testosterone faster than men do, because we have less of it than men, but we still use it up, and we think it's going to last forever. And after a certain point, even if you do hormone replacement therapy, you just have less testosterone, and you have to look at how you want to live differently, because you're going to make yourself miserable being exhausted all the time doing it
Yeah.
the way you used to do it. And I was just unwilling to be unhappy.
Right.
Yeah.
So it affected the energy in which you interact with the world to a great degree.
Completely, 100%. And I
Yeah.
loved who I was at 20, at 30, at 40. Like, I loved that energy. And so, again, an identity issue, right? I didn't want to
Right.
let go of that because that was so much how I identified, and what I loved about myself was that ability to like just power through and do things. Um, and now being unstoppable means different things for me, right?
Right. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. It does for me too. I've listened to people talk, some of them even older than us, about accepting the transition, as you get older, instead of fighting against it, right? You're not going to be 25 again. That's it. There's certain
Yeah.
things that you're not going to be able to do, but there's other things that you're going to do, and you have things that are much bigger strengths than you had when you were younger, especially the wisdom and the ability to coach or mentor other people that are going through same similar thing or coming up, whatever it is. And they were saying that there's a tremendous amount of satisfaction that comes from what you can do in the different stages of 50 plus. If you don't resist the change, but you embrace it and you look for the gift in the change itself. Would you say that that's true for you?
100%. 100%. Again, I'm wanting to own the fact that it took me a few
Oh,
years
yeah.
to really be able to go, actually, this is what I want, and this is wisdom, and this is there's so much more power in leaning into a full embrace of this. And
Yes.
um and I think that if you're able to do that, and there's a sort of methodology, I think, behind it. I think there's particular steps that you have to go through to really get clarity on that, and to be able to release what's no longer serving you, um and to embrace this new aspect of yourself, which is um there's a warmth, there's a connection, there's a calmness, there's a confidence that is so much deeper. There's a spirituality that is profound in, I think, in this um, time in our lives. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've read a lot of biographies of very successful people that stayed successful up into their 90s, right? And they all talk about the ability to kind of like redesign their life, like transform who they are as a person as they would continue to get older. And some of them have done it 7, 8, 9, 10 times, really redesigning who they are based on their age and their ability and their strengths and their weaknesses in order to remain relevant in what it is that they're actually doing. And I don't remember who said this, but somebody said that the number one characteristic for people to maintain that success is their ability to let go of who they were and
Yeah.
step into who they need to be quickly, very quickly, without a lot of lag time in there. And I'm like you, it's taken me years after I turned 50 to kind of figure out, because so many things changed at once. Kids grow up, you're moving around, you got the business, things change. Went through the COVID thing. Like, so many different things are changing. It's kind of like, well, who am I in all of these various different changes, and who do I want to be? So I think that's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah. I love what you just said about the ability to let go of who you no longer are. And I think that's where the rub lies, because what part of you is your essence? What part of you is your truth versus what part of you was who you were for a period of time, right?
Yeah,
Who you were in that phase of your life, and discerning that, really sorting through that, and really getting clarity on the essence of who you are, and bringing that to the fore, I think is there's an art to that, you know?
I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
I agree. So what's on the horizon for you?
Yeah,
Do you
so
know
so I've
yet,
been,
or are you just playing it by ear?
there's a little bit of both. I rebranded the business around this concept of the exquisite life.
Yeah,
That's really near and dear to my heart, because there's this taste. To me, it's like a taste. Like, you get a taste of, like, oh, life can be palpably sweeter than the way you've been living. And
yeah,
so I've been really exploring what that is. How do you create that? And without it being so like you can have whatever you want, and um, there's you have to take ownership for the creation of that. It's not like a wave a magic wand kind of thing.
yeah.
And um, so that's really something that I've loved exploring for myself, and also helping women define for them, what does an exquisite life look like right now for you, and how do you create that? And so there's that's really big. And then um and then there's more time on my hands right now because I've shifted my business model, and that that I have been loving, and I've been putting that into my relationship and my health, and I've moved across the country, and there's a lot of personal life things that I've been exploring, but really those two things, so personal life and this exquisite life work that I've been doing with my private clients. Those are the two things right now. Yeah.
That's great. If somebody wants to find out more about what you do, is there some place saying go check that out?
Yeah, 100%. So my website is the best place to find out about what I'm up to, and that's theunstoppablewoman.com. We have it's a pretty lengthy homepage where I talk about the 7 shadows of success, because I think this is really important for the woman who's reached a certain level of success and she's wondering, why am I not happy? Why am I not satisfied right now? And she keeps kind of like defining the next goal and going after the next metric, and it's a bit of a let's distract myself from these core wounds and shadows. So the website has a ton on these 7 shadows of success, on core wounds and loyalty packs. You can sign up for a private podcast there. You can book a call to talk to me there, but that's the best place. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Listen, thank you so much. It was really enjoyable. It was great to see you again. I'm glad everything's going fantastic. And I hope you come back again soon sometime.
I would love to. This was great, David. So good to see you.
All right. Good to see you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.